those images of Israeli ground forces moving in. Israeli Defense Forces have confirmed they've launched limited ground operations to retake a part of a key Gaza corridor, and this clearly points to an indication. This indicates that there's an escalation that is taking place, and Israel says it's expanding its security zone to create a partial buffer between the northern and the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Very, very clear indications that a massive escalation is on the cards. Israeli Defense Forces have announced ground troops. They're expanding their control further to the center of the Netzarim corridor. I'm Gaurav Sawant. We get you all details. I'd spoken to Israel's ambassador to India, Reuven Azar, on the expansion of these operations. We'll get you that. But first, as always, let's get started with the headlines on India first. Nagpur riots mastermind arrested. Minorities Democratic Party leader Fahim Khan accused of spreading rumors and mobilizing a mob. 8 Bajrang Dal workers surrender, granted bail. Farmer leaders detained by Punjab police. Security strengthened. Nearly 3,000 Punjab police personnel have now been deployed close to the Shambhu and the Khanori borders. Senior Congress Party Member of Parliament Shashi Tharoor praises Prime Minister Narendra Modi, lauds the Modi government's stance on the Russia-Ukraine war. BJP says Tharoor is welcome to join the party. Astronaut Sunita Williams is back on Earth after a spectacular SpaceX splashdown. Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore at NASA headquarters in Houston. The astronauts are to undergo a 45-day-long rehabilitation and recovery program. India Today's Sibu Kumari Tripathi, Mridulika Jha, Ashutosh Mishra and Siddhant Mohan win the prestigious Ramnath Goenka Award. India Today journalists awarded for outstanding work in print, electronic and digital media. Big story coming in on the Israel-Hamas war. Israeli ground forces have now moved in for targeted ground operations both in central and the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Israeli Defense Forces have confirmed they've launched limited ground operations to retake a part of a key Gaza corridor. Israel is expanding its security zone to create a partial buffer zone now between the northern part and the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Israeli Defense Forces, they've announced ground troops. They're expanding their control. Earlier today, I spoke to Israel's ambassador to India, Reuven Azar, on the expansion of Israel's operations and the intensity of that escalation. We get to that conversation even as Israel sends out a chilling message to those in Gaza. Israel perhaps appears to be preparing for a massive escalation, and the first bombing in which more than 400 people have been killed, more than 500 injured, is a glimpse of what lies ahead. Israeli Defense Forces have decided that their elite Golani brigade would be stationed in the southern command area. It's now on standby for expansion of operations in Gaza, and this elite Golani brigade is sent where specialized operations are required, both after the 2023 7th of October terror strikes by Hamas, and then subsequently when Israeli forces had moved in to Lebanon, to the southern part of Lebanon and northern Israel. That's when these elite troops of the Golani Brigade were deployed. IDF insists it's expanding its operations in Gaza to protect its citizens from Hamas terror. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has warned that Israel will step up its offensive and the Palestinians in Gaza will have They are being warned to evacuate to a safe area. There are some areas that are now being declared into active combat zones. Israel has repeatedly insisted if all remaining 59 hostages are not released, the IDF will act with intensity that has not been seen before. We will get you the situation on ground. Let's listen in to what Israel is doing right now.
A fresh wave of Israeli airstrikes on Gaza, the largest since the ceasefire came into effect in January this year, leaving over 400 people dead. In a televised address to the nation, the Israeli president sent out a warning to Hamas, declaring that this is just the beginning.
From now on, Israel will act against Hamas with increasing intensity, and from now on, negotiations will only take place under fire. Hamas has already felt our might in the last 24 hours, and I want to assure you, this is just the beginning.
Israel justified the pounding of Gaza by citing Hamas's repeated refusal to release more hostages.
I have promised you many times, if Hamas persists in its refusal and does not release our hostages, we will return to fighting. And indeed, we have returned to fighting. We have returned to fighting with strength. From now on, negotiations will take place only under fire.
Hamas, which still holds 59 of about 250 hostages, issued a detailed statement after the airstrikes, claiming that the head of its government in Gaza was among the list of officials killed in the Israeli airstrikes. Hamas accused Israel of jeopardizing efforts by mediators to negotiate a permanent deal to end the fight. They even urged friendly countries to pressure the United States to bring an end to the Israeli airstrikes. Hamas also warned that the resumption of violence would impose a death sentence on the remaining living hostages, but made no threat of retaliatory attacks on Israel. Meanwhile, the U.S. envoy to the United Nations stated that the blame for renewed Gaza fighting lies solely with Hamas.
This brutal terrorist organization has steadfastly refused every proposal and deadline they've been presented over the past few weeks, including a bridge proposal to extend the ceasefire beyond Ramadan and Passover, to allow time to negotiate a framework for a permanent ceasefire. President Trump has been clear. All of the remaining 59 hostages, including New Jersey resident Edan Alexander and the bodies of 4 Americans murdered by Hamas, Itai Chen, Gadi Haggai, Judy Weinstein Haggai, and Omer Nutra, must be immediately released.
Amid fresh strikes by Israel, India's Ministry of External Affairs has issued a statement expressing concern about the situation in Gaza, but reiterated that all Israeli hostages must be released soon. Bureau Report, India Today.
What do these airstrikes mean? What are Israel's plans for future? And is it actually feasible, the Donald Trump plan to have the Gaza Strip completely evacuated? Will 2.1 million people be moved out? I spoke earlier today to Israel's ambassador to India, Reuven Azar, on this dangerous escalation in the region. Ambassador, what explains, Namaste, what explains this sudden escalation?
Well, the ceasefire, the temporary ceasefire that we had has long passed, and Hamas has refused and rejected the proposals of the American mediators to bring back our hostages and renounce power in the Gaza Strip. We have waited for a long time. We cannot continue with the situation in which they have their hostages and they are not releasing them. And we decided to go back to push military pressure in order to get our hostages back and get finally a diplomatic solution for this conflict.
But the escalation and the scale of escalation, you've had 400 fatalities on the other side, and they're not Hamas. So, and that too in
They
Ramzan.
are Hamas, actually.
You're
We
saying all
target-
400 who are dead are
Well,
Hamas?
unfortunately, the Hamas leaders are hiding behind civilians. They are taking out their uniforms. They are blending into the civilian population, and they're using the civilian population as human shields. We have said that in the past. They have been abusing all the codes of humanity in order to survive in the Gaza Strip. This is not going to play for them. We have the resolution to defeat these terrorists. They have to leave the Gaza Strip. They have to let the Palestinian population to move on. They are holding hostage not just the Israeli hostages. They are holding hostages the entire Palestinian population. They deserve a better future.
ये बड़ी बात आप कह रहे हैं कि हमास के आतंकवादी जो है वो गाजा पट्टी में फिलिस्तीन के लोगों को भी उन्होंने बंधक बनाया है. But Ambassador, you've also told people, Israel's told people to move towards central Gaza. Now, is Israel creating a larger buffer zone or Israel asking people to just leave the Gaza Strip completely?
Well, no, the people, Israel is not asking the Palestinians to leave Gaza completely. What we are doing is we are creating the conditions that if Hamas doesn't accept the American proposals, we are going to take over the territory, we are going to clean up the Gaza Strip, we are going to get in charge of the humanitarian assistance, because what is happening now is that Hamas is using the humanitarian assistance that is being given free of charge by the international community. They are sequestrating that, selling it to the population in order to control the population. And that's how they keep their government in the Gaza Strip. So if they don't cooperate with diplomacy, bring back the hostages, leave the Gaza Strip, we will have to go in, take over the territory, be in charge of the humanitarian assistance ourselves.
That's a big story that you're giving us on
Yes.
here on Aaj Tak and on India Today. आप ये कह रहे हैं कि अगर गाजा से लोग सेंट्रल गाजा में नहीं गए, so Israel will move into Gaza Strip. Are you saying you'll move into Gaza Strip right from the Israel-Gaza border all the way down to the Egyptian border, all the way down to Khan Yunis, all those areas?
That's a possibility. We prefer to refrain from doing it. We can achieve a diplomatic solution, but Hamas has to face the fact that they have been defeated. If they don't face that fact, and they continue to be stubborn to stay, we'll have no choice but to enter the entire territory.
Yeah, you will control Gaza Strip. Should there be a requirement, you will distribute aid and not Hamas. That's the point you're making.
Nobody in the international community is going to come to reconstruct the Gaza Strip while Hamas is holding the grip of power in the Gaza Strip. That has to be very clear. Nobody is going to fight Hamas rather than Israel. And therefore, there are two options here. Either Hamas chooses the way of diplomacy, brings back the hostages, renounce power, leave the Gaza Strip, and if they refuse, Israel will have to go in and then transfer power to a more moderate leadership, transfer power to international stakeholders that then will be able to help the Palestinian people. How can you help the Palestinian people if all the aid that they are getting is being robbed by Hamas?
Okay, is there a time frame for Israel to do this right now when people are being asked to move to central Gaza and clear the areas of the east and the north?
We are not going to talk about operational considerations, but we are saying it very clearly. There is an alternative for this military operation. We prefer to stop it today. Hamas has to release the hostages today. Hamas has to renounce power today.
How many are on board this plan of US President Donald Trump that America will rebuild or international stakeholders will rebuild the Gaza Strip and Palestinians will have to move out? Powers in the region say that's unacceptable.
Nobody's talking about force, removing people by force.
2 million people.
Nobody's talking about forcibly removing people. What the administration has been saying is that we might need, after Hamas is out, we might need a window to rebuild the Gaza Strip because the situation, the conditions are very dire, are very bad. In many places, it's completely unlivable. So, like in other conflicts, when people have left the conflict zone temporarily, like in the Ukraine war,
Okay.
like in the Syria war, a lot of people have left. it doesn't mean they cannot come back. So the total rejection of the idea that people can temporarily move out, I think, is a very negative rejection. Why Palestinians should be different from others?
Okay.
They deserve to be treated like people, like human beings. This is what we want to achieve, a situation in which this piece of land that is actually near the Mediterranean Sea, a very good location, it has a great potential. We can build the Gaza Strip to be a good home for the Palestinians. They just have to decide to stop trying to destroy the state of Israel
If
and
Hamas
concentrate
refuses to
in
leave.
building their own country.
If Hamas refuses to leave, if Hamas says, this is my home, I will stay, I will fight till the end of time, what are options for
Well, they
Israel?
are going to have to face the full might of the Israeli Defense Forces.
Israel and the United States, those issues that you faced with the Biden administration, is that history now with the Trump administration?
We are in full sync with the American administration. This military operation that we started 2 days ago was completely coordinated with Washington. And I think that there is a common approach here, that if you want to have stability in our region, you have to defeat the radicals. You have to get the radicals to understand that they cannot continuing threatening people in the region. Look what's happening with the Houthis. They are disrupting international trade. They are creating a situation in which billions of dollars of losses, ships, civilian ships are being hijacked. This is completely unacceptable. And we are seeing a new approach from Washington when it comes to this problem. I think that if we work in sync, in a coordinated way, this will send a strong message to those terrorists that want to continue disrupting our lives.
Is there an apprehension this could escalate into a wider regional conflict like it did? Iran bombed you in the past and that led to massive escalation. Is there an apprehension it could lead to another escalation?
I doubt it, and I'll tell you why. Because Israel has already shown that there is a very dear price to pay when we are attacked. We've seen what happened in Lebanon. Hezbollah attacked us. At the end of the day, they were decimated. There is a different political situation in Lebanon today. There is a new government that wants to build Lebanon, that doesn't agree to this policy of Hezbollah to be a ground, to be a place from which Israel is attacked from. So this Iranian agenda is no longer present in Lebanon. We see a change in Syria. We've seen a change even in Iraq. The militias are no longer firing at Israel. Iran has been attacked because we retaliated. So if they decide to renew their attacks, they're going to face a very dear price from us, possibly from the United States. So that's why I'm very skeptical that this very focused conflict can spread into a much wider one.
That's another very big point you're making here, Ambassador, for joining me here on Aaj Tak in India today. Many thanks. Let's shift focus from one global hotspot to the other global hotspot, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has dialed Washington, D.C. and spoken to U.S. President Donald Trump. This after Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed to a partial ceasefire. The Kremlin says Russia has suspended its attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure after a phone call between Presidents Putin and Trump. Russia says it shot down 7 of its Ukraine-bound drones while they were still in the air. Russia, in turn, has accused Ukraine of not respecting the 30-day ceasefire on not striking each other's energy infrastructure and said Ukraine tried to attack Russia's energy infrastructure overnight with a deliberate drone attack on an oil depot in southern Russia. On the other hand, President Zelensky claims that President Putin did not agree to a complete ceasefire and that he will find opportunities to circumvent the ceasefire. Let's listen in to the apprehensions of the Ukrainian president.
Путін не погодився на повноцінну тишу, безумовну тишу, і це дуже важливо відзначити це, що він буде знаходити ті чи інші можливості обходити повну тишу. Тому що йому потрібно тиснути на Україну, а це можна, коли ти проводиш ті чи інші операції на полі бою, або або дієш постійними ескалаціями в небі, на морі, використовуєш ракети, використовуєш балістику, щоб люди жили в постійному.
And in a big related development, Russia and Ukraine have exchanged 175 prisoners of war each following a call between US President Donald Trump and the Russian President Vladimir Putin, in which a POW swap was discussed and agreed to. Russia, in fact, has handed over an additional 22 heavily wounded Ukrainian prisoners of war as they were in need of urgent medical care too. Russia's Ministry of Defense said that the United Arab Emirates had used mediation efforts of a humanitarian nature to facilitate the return of Russian troops to Russia from Ukraine and Ukrainian troops to Ukraine. And as Russia and Ukraine talk peace, Congress Party Member of Parliament Shashi Tharoor has praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi's diplomacy. Shashi Tharoor praised the Prime Minister's efforts when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war. He admitted he's the one, that is Shashi Tharoor is the one with egg on his face for opposing India's stance on the Russia-Ukraine war. There was a lot of pressure on India from Europe and the United States of America to toe the Western line. But India chose an independent path, and in the end, India has been right.
Shashi Tharoor has done it again. The Congress MP pulled up by his party just a few days ago has praised the Narendra Modi government's foreign policy. Speaking at the Raisina dialogue, Tharoor admitted the government's stand of staying neutral in the Ukraine war had turned out to be a good strategy.
It does look like I'm the one with egg on my face, because clearly the policy has meant that India has actually a prime minister who can hug both the president of Ukraine and the president of Moscow 2 weeks apart and be accepted in both places. And therefore, India is in a position where it can make a difference to a lasting peace, if it was so required, in ways that very few countries would be able to.
Tharoor in his statement was referring to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky within a span of 1 month last year. In February 2022, when the war broke out, Tharoor had criticized the Modi government for remaining neutral, given that Russia had invaded Ukraine in violation of global norms.
One thing that I'm sure my friend, the foreign minister, will want to stress also, except that perhaps he will not be able to do so as openly as I can, which is that refusing to condemn Russia is not the same as endorsing what Russia has done. And that, I think, is a reminder for all of us that whatever India may be accused of, we have not at any stage, through any action or any words, implied an endorsement of or a support of what the Russians have done by conducting this invasion of Ukraine.
While Tharoor has eaten his words, his party may find his comments hard to digest. The Kerala MP's U-turn has once again sparked speculation about his future in the Congress.
Now you can't shy away from speaking now.
The Congress itself appears divided on the issue.
Shashi Tharoor says, I am still wiping the egg off my face.
As I said, Mr. Shashi Tharoor went to the tough school of diplomacy, whereas I only studied law, so he's much more experienced than me to talk about diplomacy, so I have really no comments on his views.
I haven't heard him saying this thing, but as far as Mr. Shashi Tharoor is concerned, what is behind his mind and why did he ask this or said this should be asked from him only. I may not be able to comment what I have not heard, what I have not seen.
The BJP taunted the Congress, inviting Tharoor to join them.
देखिए, शशि थरूर जी डिप्लोमेसी समझते हैं, यूएन में काफ़ी लंबे अरसे तक उन्होंने काम किया है। मुझे लगता है कांग्रेस पार्टी के तमाम नेताओं को इससे शिक्षा लेनी चाहिए। हर बात पे भारतवर्ष के विरोध में बोलना, प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के खिलाफ बोलना, राहुल जी हों, चाहे मल्लिकार्जुन जी हों और चाहे इंडी गठबंधन के नेता हों, इन सबको आज सामने आकर शशि थरूर जी के इस स्टैंड की सराहना करनी चाहिए।
Currently, Tharoor is engaged in a battle within the faction-ridden Kerala Congress, where he finds himself isolated. Is Tharoor's comments on the Modi government's foreign policy a signal to the High Command? With Sunil G. Bhatt, Bureau Report, India Today.
Big news coming in from the Punjab-Haryana border. The Punjab police have moved in big numbers and are removing the protesting farmers from the Punjab-Haryana border. Punjab police, and we are told that there are 3,000, and that's a huge number. 3,000 Punjab policemen who are now on standby to detain 200 farmers at the Khanuri border. Farmers are being removed from the Shambu border. Sources are saying that there are 3,000 Punjab policemen who have been deployed to tackle 200 farmers at one border and some farmers at the other. The police have also brought in bulldozers. So somewhere down the line, it appears that the Bhagwant Mann government is not wearing kid gloves while dealing with the Annadatas, which was the case earlier when they held the farm protest. Or has the reason changed so completely? What we are now being told is that bulldozers are being brought in. Bulldozers and JCB machines are being brought in. So all those fans that you see, all those comforts that you see, they're all being forcibly removed by the Punjab police. The shelters, the structures that had been made on the Punjab-Haryana border, they are being removed. That's a different story. When they were at another border, it was kept there and then the farmers stayed for a very, very long time as a right to protest. So right to protest is acceptable in one border near the national capital, not acceptable in another border, is a question that we will continue to answer. The farmers have been protesting since the 13th of February 2024. I'll get you more on that story, but just listen in to the Punjab police on why this action is being taken and why now.
ये शंभू बॉर्डर पे जो काफ़ी देर से किसानों का धरना चल रहा था, उसमें आज ड्यूटी मजिस्ट्रेट्स की प्रेजेंस में पुलिस की तरफ से क्लियर करवाया गया है। आफ्टर गिविंग प्रॉपर वार्निंग इनको दी गई थी और उसके बाद ये सारा क्लियर करवाया गया है। कुछ लोगों ने अपनी विलिंगनेस दी थी कि हम घर जाना चाहते हैं, तो उनको बसेस में बिठा के घर भेजा गया और इन एडिशन जो यहाँ पे स्ट्रक्चर्स हैं और व्हीकल्स हैं उनको मूव करा जा रहा है। हमें कोई यूज़ ऑफ फोर्स नहीं करनी पड़ी, कोई रेजिस्टेंस नहीं था। बहुत अच्छी तरह से किसानों ने कोऑपरेट करा है और खुद ही वो बसेस में बैठ के थे।
I want to quickly bring in India Today's Aseem Bassi, who joins us live from the Sambhu border in Punjab on this big breaking story. Explain why this action is being taken, why now and why at 10 o'clock at night. What's happening right now?
It was simmering since many days as the Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann had given clear message that farmers will not be allowed to disturb the non-farmer population and the dharnas will not be allowed. Since the Shambu border and the Kanori border, the dharnas were on since February 13, 2024, past 1.5 years almost. It was become quite irritant for the commuters on this Amritsar-New Delhi highway. It is learned that the industry, the business community, they were very unhappy and they told even Arvind Kejriwal that this entire dharnas are affecting their business. So this action has been taken place. And today there was a farmers meeting with the union government in Chandigarh, and as soon as this meeting ended, the farmer leaders, Sarwan Pandher, Jagjit Talewal, all were detained in Mohali, and after that an action was taken here at Shambu border. Here I'm at Shambu, you can see the arrangements that even the police vehicles are deployed all over the night and the officers are all over there, and now the JCP machines are being used to uproot the temporary arrangements, the stopgap arrangements being made by the farmers to stay over, because they've been staying on this border past 1.5 years, and all the temporary arrangements are being removed by the JCPs, although there's a line of 1 kilometer.
Okay, and we can hear all that action being taken. Keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. Will there be an impact of this? What will farmers do next? Will farmers from other parts or regions also rally behind farmers? or is that no longer politically feasible or a wise thing to do? We'll be tracking that story very closely. That is all I have for you on this special broadcast. Many thanks for watching. Quick break, lots more coming up. Sunita Williams back on Earth. We'll recap that space odyssey and much more. Stay with us.